What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bourbon and Bets. As always, I'm your host, Zach Stonerock, and joining me again on the show, we have longtime friend of mine, Detroit Lions fan, Mr. Tim Todd. Tim, welcome back to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me again. Hey,
Of course.
when you say Detroit Lions fan, it's not as embarrassing anymore. I feel like there's like that stigma's kind of gone, you know?
You got some hopeful optimism and all that stuff kind of floating through the Motor City these days, which I've known you since we were 4 or 5 years old. Um, I can't really think of in the past 30 years a time where there really has been like optimism. Kind of started to filter in last year, but can you think of another time where like the people of Detroit could feel this good about the upcoming football season?
I mean, maybe a handful of times. Obviously when you had Barry, there were some. And then when Calvin and Stafford were there, maybe a little bit, but a lot of disappointment in all those years.
I mean, that city, I mean, for a long time, Detroit was a strong sports town, with the exception of football. But the Pistons had a nice little streak where they were winning championships, and then your Red Wings were, I mean, it was hockey town, right? Like Detroit was hockey town, and they ran the league. I mean, that was back when like Steve Eiserman was there, Nicholas Lidstrom, he was on the team, right? I'm just trying to pick out names that I vaguely remember from back in the day. Chris
Just
Osgood.
90s, 2000s. Yeah, they were they
Yeah,
were really good.
so really, it's hey, shout out to you, number one, for being a true dedicated fan and sticking with them all these years, because it's not easy. As soon as you guys lost hockey and the Pistons went downhill, you have not experienced a lot of joy from Detroit sports in a long time.
No, 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 we have not. But I'm there watching every Sunday. Can't
You
wait.
sure are. You
Doesn't
sure
matter.
are.
Doesn't matter the team.
Um,
How you feeling
let's
about your Panthers, though?
uh you already know I'm feeling good with some of the side bets I've put in with you guys. I got a lot of optimism. I think Frank Reich is a good fit for that job, bringing in a young quarterback. Frank Reich was one of our first quarterbacks in the organization, so a lot of history there. We have solid pieces around our young quarterback. We got Miles Sanders in the backfield. We have Adam Thielen, who is, just a very solid veteran receiver who's going to be a good outlet for him. We got Hayden Hurst, DJ Chark, and we have some young guys with Mingo and Terrence Marshall Jr. So, I mean, there's a lot of pieces on offense, and I think our defense might be one of the most underrated defensive units in football right now. We added a few pieces in the offseason as well in the secondary. With Xavier Woods coming in, and Von Bell, I believe, is the other name I'm thinking of. With him coming in, I think Jeremy Chin is finally going to get to really excel in his role. They kind of forced him to play the safety role, but he does better when he has to kind of float and be that like middle hybrid, like linebacker safety type player. So I think he's going to have a lot more opportunity to do that with the pieces that we have in place. So NFC South champs coming at you, Carolina Panthers. So
For your sake, I hope. I will say, I think that regardless of this season coming up, like they are heading in the right direction. So like you have a lot to look forward to in the future, at least.
and if you look at the NFC South as a whole division, the Bucks lost Brady. They're going to have struggles. They had struggles last year even with Brady.
That's a huge loss.
Yeah, because Baker Mayfield is looking like he's going to be the starting quarterback. So, I mean, we did the Baker experiment. Cleveland did the Baker experiment. The Rams had Baker for a couple games last season. So we've seen what Baker can do. And there's a lot of talk about whether Baker was 100% last year. Obviously, he has some shoulder injuries. I don't think Baker's the guy. And then if we move on to Atlanta, very young team. Desmond Ritter is going to be the starting quarterback this year, with Mariota exiting in the offseason, which Mariota not a great quarterback, not a franchise quarterback as much as the Titans hoped he was when they drafted him. But Desmond Ritter, young guy, young quarterback out of Cincinnati. I really liked him at Cincinnati. I think he fit that style of play very well with Luke Fickell as his coach. I'm just not sure that his style is going to translate well. I hope it does. I would love to see him have success, but they do have a good offensive line, which is one thing that they have going for them down there. And they have Bijan Robinson in the backfield, and then Drake London out at receiver, as well as one of the tight ends with the most potential in the league, and Kyle Pitts. So I think they're set up to potentially make a little bit of noise. I still think they're a couple years away, at least maybe a quarterback away, depending on how Ritter plays out. And then you got the Saints, who Derek Carr just arrived. Michael Thomas finally back on the field. Seems like the first time since 1992.
How long that lasts.
I mean, it was so long ago. Alvin Kamara, what's he going to look like this year? They do have Chris Olave, who is a beast. Had a really strong rookie performance. So, and that defense always seems to be pretty solid. So, I truly think that the Panthers are set up to win that division. That was a lot of information. Thoughts?
Yeah. I don't. The Saints. I think the Saints are the team to beat right now, just on paper. Until we see a lot of those young guys, because again, as you said, the Falcons, they got a lot of young potential there. So like, if a lot of those guys, end up being what the Falcons think they are, like that could be huge.
Could be.
And again, the Panthers, I think, are heading in the right direction. I think the Saints are the most ready team in the division right now, but it's the NFL.
A lot of parity.
Just because you're the most ready team right now doesn't mean 5 weeks into the season you will be. So it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, we are only 39 days away. So football's coming at us fast. College football is going to be starting before. Actually, the Hall of Fame game is coming up. When's the Hall of Fame game? It's in a few days, right? Today's Saturday. When is it? Thursday. So no, today's not Saturday. Today's Sunday. But yeah, I mean, we're just a few days away from the Hall of Fame game, which always receives a lot of hype because it's the Hall of Fame, but it's always quite possibly like some of the worst football that you're going to watch in your lifetime.
It's funny. I saw a promo poster for it, and it had Aaron Rodgers and Nick Chubb on it, and I'm like, neither of those guys are playing in this game.
Those guys will not step on the field. Yeah, that's I am excited for football to be back, but I think until we get out of preseason, college football is going to be my go-to for a little bit to really fill that void, because that's when we're going to see probably a better product, right? We're not going to be cycling through as many people on and off the field just so guys can get reps. So
yeah, it's more meaningful.
Right.
Sure.
Right. But yeah, 39 days away. Wanted to bring you on the show because the Panthers are NFC, Lions are NFC. So figured you'd be a good guy to talk to about the NFC. So let's take a look at the NFC this upcoming season. And we're going to go through who we each think is going to win the NFC championship, who's going to be the rushing leader out of the NFC, receiving leader and passing leader, all out of the NFC. So this isn't looking at the whole NFL. I tell you what, when I was doing some research, I did notice that the majority of the favorites to win in each of these categories do not come out of the NFC.
I was thinking the same thing when I was looking a lot of this information up last night.
So I know that when I sent over the things we were going to talk about, that I put the NFC champs as the first topic, but we're actually going to save that for the last. So let's go ahead and start with NFC rushing leader. Who do you have? Who do you have taking home the rushing title for the NFC?
So again, I know you mentioned like AFC seems to be heavy on a lot of these categories, and I was thinking that same thing. So when I was looking at this NFC rushing, I was looking for a guy. There's a guy out there that I think has got a huge chip on his shoulder right now, and I think he's definitely out to prove something this year.
Can I guess? So, let me guess.
Go ahead.
Saquon Barkley.
I am going to go with Saquon Barkley. Yeah, I think he's betting on himself this year by making that deal that he made with the Giants. It wasn't like a crazy big deal. It seemed like he wasn't going to sign with them, and now he's there. He's putting in the work. I just feel like he is betting on himself right now to try to win big. And right
Yeah.
now, it doesn't look like those running backs are going to win big, but I feel like that's the approach he's taking. So he's going to give everything he's got.
I really like Saquon. I do think he has a chip on his shoulder. I'm not sure their offensive line is one of the better units in football. I would say they're probably in like the bottom 20% of the league, and I think that that's going to cause some problems. Um, Also thinking about, so Daniel Jones is back there at quarterback, and I think I like Daniel Jones more than a lot of people like him. I don't think he's a great quarterback by any means, but I think when we look at like their receivers, who's their top receiver?
Oof. You know,
That's where like I,
sure.
I feel like I need to look that up now, and I'm going to be really embarrassed if it's a bigger name than what
But I don't think it is.
I want to say. Didn't they get like? Did they take Isaiah McKenzie away from the Bills?
Maybe, but that's still not like a number one. It's not a
Yeah.
true number one.
Let's see here. We got Darius Slayton and Isaiah Hodgins and Paris Campbell. Like not
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like
not
not a
names that are going to blow you away.
no. But here's the thing.
Shepard.
Here's the thing about Saquon. I think if you look at the NFC setup, assuming Dalvin Cook isn't signing with an NFC team, right? Like let's assume he's not. And let's say injuries, we're in this perfect world here, perfect NFL world where nobody gets hurt. I don't think there's a lot of teams when you look at them, like Saquon is the guy and with the Giants, like he's gonna take the bulk of the carries. There's not like a big 1-2 punch there or a split backfield. Most other teams are splitting carries, right? Like, so that's the other thing I look at. And if you look at just pure talent, I think he's got it in the NFC. Now we start throwing in the AFC, like you said, that changes things a whole bunch. But
Right.
just looking at the NFC, that's what I see.
So yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Saquon comes in at second place in the conference with odds of plus 1,400 to win the league in rushing to lead the league in rushing. The only person above him is Bijan Robinson coming in at plus 1,000. I hear what you're saying, but I think that there's one guy that's getting overlooked because he's been the number 2 guy for the past couple seasons here. He has a really strong offensive line. I'm really not a fan of the quarterback, so I'm going to let you take a guess at who I'm going to take as the rushing leader.
Well, and I think I'm gonna say you're Madison. Is it you're going with Alexander Madison? Oh no, okay. See,
I like Kirk Cousins better than this quarterback.
oh wow, okay. See, I was thinking, I just figured like he'd be plugged into the best situation.
I don't know about Madison. I'm not sure what Madison's going to do this year.
Man, I don't know. Who you
I'm
thinking?
going to go with Tony Pollard.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's the go-to guy there. They got one of the best offensive lines in football. As much as I don't like Dak, I know that passing game is at least going to be decent. I think Pollard. We saw glimpses of Pollard last year, and I know this because he was on my fantasy team. Where he put up crazy performances. The thing that I am a little worried about with him is that he's not always a running back. They use him a lot to catch passes, and that could. I think he has a chance to lead the league in all-purpose yards. I think he has potential to be like a Christian McCaffrey type caliber guy.
There's another guy we didn't mention either,
which is crazy. That's what I wanted to get to because so Pollard's at plus 1,800, and that's where I'm going for my pick. But if we look at Christian McCaffrey, he doesn't even come into the list until number 5 at plus 2,500 yards to lead the league or to lead the NFC in rushing, which a little bit crazy to me.
It's a little crazy, but if you look at the 49ers situation, I don't think it's as crazy because do I think McCaffrey could lead all running backs on all-purpose yards? Easily. Like, rushing yards is a whole different thing. And when you look at the Niners, like, they have this carousel going right now with quarterbacks, and you just don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
So they're just really kind of quiet. They also like to throw Debo in the backfield a lot. So it just takes away a lot of the NFL's changed to where you're looking for mismatches now instead of guys just playing these one positions. You're looking for matchup nightmares, is what you're doing. That's what a lot of these offensive coordinators are doing. So they're putting a ton of different guys in a ton of different places. And it makes picking these types of stats really difficult.
Yeah.
So
I think when you look at San Francisco too, it comes down to who is going to be the starting quarterback. Is it going to be Brock Purdy again, or do they bring Trey Lance in? There's another person there too.
there's been a lot of talk about Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
Sam
Sam
Darnold.
Darnold. Yeah,
So like there's been a lot of hype around him too.
and I think that with all of those quarterbacks, you have to have a different game plan for each because they're all very different in styles, which is kind of surprising that they would have three quarterbacks with such different styles of play, because Trey Lance needs a completely different style of offense than Brock Purdy does, in my opinion. Yeah, so I do think the situation is going to hurt Christian McCaffrey, but Christian McCaffrey's still one of the best running backs that I think we've seen on the field since he came into the league.
Yeah, and again, I go with all-purpose. I mean, like I think he could very easily lead in all-purpose yards. You know, he's taking screens 60, 70 yards sometimes. So, you know, it's just rushing. Again, I just feel like Barkley's got that chip. Pollard, I kind of did overlook him. I'll be honest with you. I didn't really think much about Pollard, but again,
mark my words right now, Tim. Pollard's winning the NFC rushing title.
See, it's just when I think of Pollard, and maybe it's because Zeke's been there so long, but like I just see him. He's all over the field.
Well, he's never been the guy. He's never been the guy.
Exactly.
And now he's the guy. So I guess now that he's the guy, he can either really excel and just take off like a rocket ship, or he could crumble under the pressure. I don't think the latter is going to happen. I think we're going to see a big year out of Tony Pollard.
All right.
I just need for you to agree with me and say that he's going to be the NFC rushing leader.
I will not.
Thanks, Tim.
I will not.
All right, let's move to the passing leader for the NFC. So this is what we kind of talked about earlier when I was looking at this list. There's only one quarterback out of the NFC in the top 5, and that's Kirk Cousins coming in at plus 1,100. Then you got Dak at plus 2,000. Jared Goff, your guy, coming in at plus 2,500. Derek Carr at plus 2,800. Geno Smith at plus 3,000, and then Jalen Hurts at plus 3,000. So there not a lot of confidence in the passing game out of the NFC from around the league and from all these sports books. Who do you have taking home the passing title this year?
So this is crazy. Okay, there's a name that I didn't hear on that list for odds that I'm like, why is that name not on there? So first off,
let me try to think about this. Let me guess this one too. I don't know who this would be, Tim, actually.
Okay, so let me explain.
Go ahead.
So the last 2 years, the NFC passing leader was Tom Brady.
Okay.
He's gone. Okay.
Right.
You had Kirk Cousins, who was up there, which rightfully so. He's got one of the greatest, if not the greatest receiver that he's throwing to, right?
Right.
So the other guy that comes to mind that's not on this list to me, and this is where I struggled between Cousins and this other guy, is Matthew Stafford. And if Matthew Stafford's not injured, the Rams are probably going to be throwing the ball a lot. Whether they're winning or not, they are going to be throwing the ball a ton. So 2 years ago, when Matt Stafford wasn't injured, he was second behind Brady in passing yards. He's still putting up tons of passing yards. And I think he's going to have to again this year, especially with their situation in Los Angeles. So to me, I think it comes, but it's between Stafford, in my opinion, or Kirk Cousins. I ultimately see Kirk Cousins winning it. And it's just comes down to, I think he's got the better receiving core. The Vikings defense, kind of makes them have to throw the ball a lot sometimes. So,
Yeah.
not to say that the Vikings aren't going to be winning, but if you look at all their games are close.
Yeah.
And when you're in these close games or you're down by a little bit, you're throwing the ball. You're throwing the ball. You're throwing the ball. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins, but I would not be shocked if Matt Stafford doesn't lead the NFC in passing and might be on a very mediocre team while doing that.
I don't know, man. I feel like the Rams are on a decline, and they're continuing to be on a decline. There was talks of Stafford possibly even getting traded out of there. Um, I
Contract based. They don't want to take on that contract.
right. I just I outside of Cooper Cup, they don't really have much help for him to catch passes. They got Ben Skoroniak. Is that how you say his name?
Chronic, I think, yeah.
And I think Van Jefferson, and then Tyler Higbee. Um, I'm also not sold on that offensive line to be able to protect Stafford. Um, I know that wasn't your pick, but I can understand why he's not on that list.
Okay. I mean, and that's fair, but and I get he's not as young as he used to be, but I feel like his situation right now is exactly his situation when he was in Detroit with no offensive line, not a lot.
He was a
Obviously, he
younger
doesn't have
guy.
yeah, he doesn't have Calvin Johnson, I get it. But if you look at just the entire makeup of the Rams right now, they're going to be passing the ball a lot, I think. So like I think that's in part what and this is forgetting about injury. He could obviously get injured, and that takes that away, like he did last year. But
Do you think that maybe the Rams should sign Dante Culpepper to back him up, and then maybe light a fire under him to play through his injury?
Dante Culpepper, where did that come from?
Remember when Stafford like separated his shoulder and threw that game-winning pass? Culpepper was supposed to come into the game.
Oh, was that Culpepper
That
back
was
then? I
Dante
remember Culpepper
Culpepper.
playing for the Lions, but I don't remember him playing with the Lions with Stafford. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, it's because he didn't. He took the field, and then they took a timeout, and that's when Stafford came back in. He's like, I can play, and Culpepper had to walk back over to the sidelines, and that's when Stafford threw that touchdown pass.
That's funny. I do
Yeah.
remember that was against the Browns. It was like his second win or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, but again, like you just said, that was his second win, and that's. I mean, he was a much younger guy back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
But let's talk about your pick of Cousins. So Cousins, like I mentioned, is the only one who broke into the top five for the league, plus 1,100. I think there's a lot of weight on this with Justin Jefferson and how many yards he's going to get, and without question, I think Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the NFL. Like I think that. I mean, there's a few guys that you can maybe make an argument for, but I think just age, talent, physical attributes, I think Justin Jefferson is the guy. I'm just not sure Kirk Cousins is the guy to be able to fully take advantage of that and distribute the ball around to where he's not just locked in on Jefferson the whole time. I don't I could see Kirk Cousins taking home the passing title, but he's not going to be my pick. I actually am going to take a guy who had a resurgence last year, who is surrounded by a lot of talented receivers, and has a very strong young running back in the backfield. Any guesses who I'm going to go with here?
That'd be Geno.
It's going to be Geno Smith. I mean, he's got Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and then he has Kenneth Walker in the back. The Seahawks, I think that's going to be another question for them is like, is their offensive line going to be able to hold up? But if Geno is able to continue to progress, I think I mentioned earlier in a different episode that I wasn't sure if he's going to be able to keep it going. But the more I look into it and the more I look at the talent around him and having Pete Carroll as a coach, who I think Pete Carroll is one of the better coaches in the NFL. I see Geno having a huge year passing. I think that receiving trio is criminally underrated. Tyler Lockett's probably one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL, who just continues to perform year after year. So go ahead and give me Geno Smith. Geno comes in at plus 3,000 to win the league passing title. I think he has a solid shot to win the NFC passing title.
Okay. I mean, I can see it. I could also see a regression from him. I just don't know what to
Possible.
expect.
Like I said, I mentioned that previously, where I could see him falling back into the Geno that played for the Giants, or not Giants, the Jets.
Yeah.
I think that's very possible, but I just think with the pieces around him, there's potential. There's a lot of potential for him to have a huge passing year.
Definitely think he's got more positivity around him right now,
Yep,
which helps.
absolutely,
That confidence boost.
for sure.
Yeah.
Looking at a couple of the other, like Dak, you already know my feelings on Dak.
Dak's in a weird situation too. I could see him taking it too. He wasn't somebody that immediately came to mind for me, but just that division. Once you get in some of those division games, those passing yards are going to go down a little bit. Those games aren't as high scoring, I guess. I mean, last year, I guess with them and the Eagles, it was, but I don't know. Dak doesn't do it for me. I don't know. I don't know why.
Yeah, me too.
No.
There's just something about him. Like I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he actually has like a great story, but I just don't like him as a quarterback.
Yeah,
Nothing personal.
I
Dak is
wouldn't go
close
that
to
far,
this.
but I
Nothing
just,
personal.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then next on the list was your guy, Jared Goff. Do you have any sense that he could potentially sneak in there and steal this title?
I don't think so. And it's not because he can't. I just think that the offense is looking to be more balanced, I guess. So I don't think they're going to just be pass, pass, pass. I don't think that's what they want to do with that offensive line. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a little bit of, hey, we do want to run this down your throat a little bit. And, we're going to find ways to get St. Brown the ball, JMO the ball in these open spaces. Jameer Gibbs they're going to try to make him a mismatch nightmare too. Like, there's a lot of different things that they're doing. And I don't necessarily think it's going to just be all flashy passing. Like, I think they're going to try to make it as easy for Goff as possible to where he doesn't just have to sling the ball down the field all day. So that's why I just think they're looking for more balance.
That's fair. I think I was trying to think about who your number two receiver was behind St. Brown, and I forgot about Jamison Williams, but he's
And then,
out
I mean,
for 6.
yeah, he's out for 6 games. They have Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones came back this year, so he's going to be a solid guy to throw in there. You got Kyle Freeman. He's very fast. Like, if you look at the speed on the Lions from the Lions receivers, the guys, their 40 times are like insane.
Yeah.
And then they just added Denzel Mims, and you don't know what to expect from him just because he did not have a good go in New York.
New York
But
was a tough setup. I mean, Zach
yeah,
Wilson
yeah,
quarterback.
but I have been seeing things to where, like, I do think he's gonna make the team.
Really?
They've already the thing is that they waived a Tom Kennedy, which was one of their receivers that's like, I saw somebody called him Mr. August. I mean, he's been an animal in preseason the past couple of years, but then, like, he's in between that, like, when he's playing against like these third string guys, he's tearing them up.
Right.
And then he gets caught up, and it's a different ball game when you get up to these
It
number
is.
ones.
It really is crazy the leap or the gap in talent from like the guys who you see every Sunday and then the guys who you see just flash in preseason and then you never hear from again. Like I think that gap is bigger than what people think it is, because optically you see a guy just show out in preseason and you're like, what happened to him? And it's like, well, he just couldn't make that leap.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're not getting reps against number ones. It's going to be hard to get in there and find separation. But they waived him, so it makes me think that they're creating room for him. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you Mims is going to be some superstar, but I do think he adds another element to where, if he's got his head on straight in Detroit, he could be another mismatch guy that they're just throwing in there. He's fast, so
Yeah.
you never know what you're going to get with them. And I think they're looking to spread the ball and get a lot of touches to a lot of different guys this year. So
Fair. All right, so we've hit on rushing, we've hit on passing. Let's talk receiving. I think I know where you're going to go with this one, just because it is everyone's clear cut favorite. But Let's go with receiving. And who do you think is going to be the NFC receiving leader this year?
I think there's the very obvious Justin Jefferson pick, and that's probably where that is where I'm going to land with this pick. I mean, I think he's the obvious guy. Um, if we were to take him out of it and like I have to pick somebody, I like CeeDee Lamb as a guy that could potentially do it. You know, I don't think if Justin Jefferson's playing every week, he had a couple games last week where he was held to near nothing
Yeah.
and still just crushed everybody. So it's hard to not pick him because he is, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league. So
Yeah, I'm with you too. I mean, I think this one doesn't really require a lot of discussion or back and forth. Jefferson's my favorite as well. I don't love Kirk Cousins, but on paper, Kirk Cousins puts up impressive stats, like quietly. No one really, you don't hear much about his seasons that he has, but I saw like a side by side graphic of Kirk Cousins versus Josh Allen since 2018, and Kirk Cousins was beating him in most categories. Um,
I think Kirk Cousins just gets a bad rap because it's that whole primetime thing. Like he can't win in primetime. He's not winning these playoff games. So it is a struggle when you're on national television and you're not winning these games. But then 1 o'clock, you're just slinging the ball, crushing it.
he's also just a goofball, man. I mean, he's such a
Yes.
dad. I mean, I mean,
He very much. Did you watch the quarterback show?
I haven't finished it yet, but I saw I watched the first episode, and I mean his wardrobe matches very similar to mine. So like I'm not hating on it. I'm not a fashionable guy either, but I mean he's just a goofy guy. Like
Yeah, I
I
think dad is the best way to describe him, as you did earlier. Like that's
oh
it.
yeah, absolutely. And that when I say he's goofy, that's not like an insult. It's very much so. He's just like he's like he's somebody I could imagine going over like a friend's house as a child and just being like, "Yep, that's the dad." Like
Yeah.
he is the dad. He could be like a sitcom dad for sure. Um, and then he's like dancing on the plane with his shirt off and stuff. He's yeah. Um, I am gonna put kind of a reach in this one here, and this one really comes down to um quarterback play. I'm gonna put two out there. Um, Christian Watson. I think if Jordan Love has a good season and he comes in and he's Aaron Rodgers esque after Aaron sat behind Favre for as long as he did, Aaron came in and had a great season. I think if Love comes in and does the same thing, I think Christian Watson is going to benefit heavily from that. I like Christian Watson. We saw glimpses of him being a very great receiver last year. So I think that's an option. And then I also think you got to stay within that division and possibly look at DJ Moore. And that's all going to come down to how Justin Fields plays. Is Justin Fields, now that he has an actual weapon at receiver, outside of Equinemius St. Brown and Darnell Mooney, like DJ Moore is probably the first real receiver that he's had. I can see DJ Moore was a 1,000-yard receiver for us in Carolina basically every year that he was there. So I could see DJ Moore having a strong year if Justin Fields can put together a solid season.
Yeah, that's not. I think the Justin Fields thing just scared. I think he's going to be running for his life again. I mean, I know they've upgraded that offensive line a little bit, but like
They're still
they
bottom
were
25%.
3-14. Like I'm seeing things on the internet where people thinking they're going to win the NFC North, and I just don't see how it's even in the realm of reality. Like, are they going to be improved? Sure, but like to me, that's like 6, maybe 7 wins.
Yeah.
Like I don't see a crazy. There's going to be struggles there still, a lot of struggles there. And when you go to Green Bay, I think a lot of that offense is going to run through those running backs. So I don't see a receiver being a receiving leader in the NFC there. I guess Christian Watson would be the one that you could see do it, but I don't. Again, this is all just a stretch because Justin Jefferson is just king in the NFC. It's hard.
Yeah. But I just want the listeners to know, every year that I've had the first overall pick in any fantasy draft, Tim always comes to me and he's like, "Oh, this is the clear cut number one. You have to take this guy. This is the clear cut number one. You have to take this guy." And every time Tim says that, that guy has the worst season of his career, or he gets a season-ending injury. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'm gonna do it again this year, Zach. I'm trying to get you to not win. That's all it is.
I'm trying to get my fantasy league shut down, like you shut your own league
That's
down.
right. I'm never commissioning again.
That was insane. All right, so we both agree Justin Jefferson coming in at plus 500 there. Let's go ahead and just look at the NFC as a whole. Who do you think is going to be the NFC champ this year?
Man, so we were talking before we started recording this podcast, and like the NFC, I could see like 3 or 4 teams could possibly be tied for like the most wins in the NFC. It's just the way these schedules come out, and I think like you want to look at it and go, oh, the Eagles are going to have the most wins in the NFC. They're the most loaded team, in my opinion, as far as just offense, defense, everything. But they got a tough schedule.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about how they have to play the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Niners, then the Cowboys on back like 4 weeks in a row. That sucks.
They could open up 0-3 for sure.
Well, that's not to start. That's not their start of their season. They start pretty easy. That's like in the middle of the season, but like that's tough. That's a hard stretch of season. And I get it. They were a division leader, so they got to play against the best. That's just kind of how that works, how the NFL schedules work. But I could see the 49ers up there in wins. I could see the Vikings up there in wins. I could see even possibly the Lions getting up there in wins. I could see, there's a lot of things that
Panthers.
I think could happen in the NFC. What'd you say?
The Panthers.
Oh, yeah. No, I wasn't thinking them. Even the Cowboys. Like, I could see the Cowboys getting up there and win. Like, there's just a lot of things that I think could happen in the NFC. But ultimately, when I look at, like, who has the best team and who's going to win those playoff games, I can't see anybody other than Philadelphia. Like,
I thought you were going to say the Cardinals.
Yeah, the Cardinals, yeah, for sure. No, I just can't see anybody other than the Eagles winning the NFC Championship. And again, that's like we're looking now before the season starts, and a lot of this is based off what happened last season. They lost the Super Bowl, a very close game that they very well could have won. I think they're going to come back hungry. These opinions might change once the season starts, and I see, how some of these teams are playing, some injuries pop off and things like that. But for me right now, it's the Eagles.
Okay. I think that's a solid pick. They're the favorite to win the NFC at plus 330. I could definitely see that happening. The team that comes in at number 2 is the Niners at plus 400. I don't love that pick because, again, I think there's too many questions at quarterback with who's going to be the starter there. So I'm not sold on the Niners. The Cowboys are coming at plus 600. Not necessarily sold on them either. That's really going to come down to Dak and how he performs this year, because I feel like that's kind of I think that's the issue year after year is Dak always seems to come up short, right? Like, and we talked about that back when Avery was talking about him getting his $40 million contract. Looking at the fact that the Cowboys year over year, I mean, back when there was only 16 games, they were finishing like 8-8, 9-7, 7-9, like.
And the Cowboys always have this hype around them, whether they're like great or just mediocre or whatever. And I think it's just fan base. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, they're America's team.
Yeah, so like they're always going to have this hype, but like to think that they're the 3rd best team in the NFC, I don't know about that. Like,
and Jerry Jones, I mean, he makes sure that the Cowboys are just shoved down our throats week after week. They get so many primetime games and they get so much coverage. And I'm with you. I don't think, I mean, I don't know, because like I said, I think Tony Pollard is going to lead the league in rushing, and I think that is going to take some of the pressure off of Dak. But I'm with you. I think the Cowboys are up there too high. Um, really though, I'm going to fall back on, and this is crazy. I could see the Eagles. I'm not going to lock in with the Eagles. I think I am going to go with the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks could potentially win the NFC South. I mean, they made a run last year where they look strong going into the playoffs. And I mean they're at plus 1,300 to win the NFC. So I with that offense, I could see the Seahawks making a little bit of noise. I would lean towards the Eagles, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and pull the trigger on the Seahawks this year.
Okay, so do you have the Seahawks winning the NFC, like overall? So they're going to the Super Bowl from the NFC. So you have okay.
I think
Who
so.
who do you have winning the NFC West? Just outright NFC West. Do you have the Seahawks winning, or are they getting in with wild card and going to the Super Bowl? Because like honestly, like either one of those things.
So I think that division comes down to the Niners and the Seahawks.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So I because of quarterback play, I would take the Seahawks over the Niners.
I just think I think defensive, just when you look at like total team, I think I would have the 49ers winning the division, but that doesn't mean that the 49ers are going to win the NFC over the
Right.
Seahawks. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I could very much see the Niners winning that division, and then I could still see the Seahawks beating them in a playoff game. Because it's one game. Like just because your defense has played well for 18 weeks doesn't mean they're going to play well that 1 week.
Right.
So,
I think that's one of the greatest things about the NFL, very much like the March Madness tournament for NCAA basketball, is as long as you get there, like if you get to the playoffs, every single team that makes it to the playoffs has a chance to win the Super Bowl
oh, yeah.
because it's one game. Like you have to take it just game by game. You don't have to win a series. You just have to be the better team that day.
Yep.
So yeah. I'm gonna go with Seahawks. It's hard not to pick the Eagles because of everything you said, but I like the Seahawks. I would love to see what that team can do. And with Kenneth Walker back there also, I'd love to see that team make it back to the Super Bowl. I just think they're a fun team to watch too.
Yeah. Well, if I'm wishing for a team, obviously I want the Lions to win the NFC, but I'm not as big on the hype train as some people that I've seen. So like I'm not ready to pull that trigger yet.
They're up
But
there though, man. I mean, they're plus 900, so they're in fourth place when you look at the odds.
yeah, it's insane. That's to think that they went from 1-6 last year to start the season to now they're fourth best chances to win the NFC odds wise. Like it's insane.
I really hope Dan Campbell gets a lot of credit for that, and I think he does. But I think people there's going to be a lot of people that are going to overlook what he's done with that culture of that team because as a fan, I mean, for a long time, the culture of that team was we are just a losing team.
Oh yeah.
Like that's just who we are. I feel like the front office kind of felt that way. They didn't want to do anything to make that team a winning organization. And Dan Campbell I mean, he's brought that attitude and that mentality to Detroit. So,
I think it's definitely a big partnership between him and Brad Holmes. Like
yeah,
they seem to be very in sync when it comes to drafting guys. Like they're not ready to stray away from what they want. Like everybody looked at that Jahmyr Gibbs pick and were like, "What the heck are they doing?" But like they were like in sync. They knew that's the guy they wanted. They weren't going to be able to get him if they traded back. Like there's just, I think they are very in sync. I love Ben Johnson as our offensive coordinator. I think he's very in sync with them. Aaron Glenn, I think our defensive coordinator, we get that defense going. I think that'll be the biggest thing. They get that defense going, and I think they could really be dangerous. So we'll see. I think they're improved, but again, you don't know until you see it on the field.
yeah. 39 days, Tim. We get to see it in 39 days. Well, actually, you're earlier, right? Don't you guys play the Chiefs week one?
Lions play
That is 39 days away.
So September 7th. So that's 39 days till that game.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited to I'm excited for you to potentially have some success as a football fan this year.
Yeah, but if there is not success, the disappointment is just going to be. I mean, to me, it's just the same.
Just another year for you. What,
Like,
anything else you want to hit on, man, before we wrap things up?
I mean, no, I think a lot of these questions that a lot of these leaders that we talked about will be much harder to pick come AFC whenever we do AFC day. Like that'll be, yeah, just even thinking about that hurts my head a little bit because it just even like the AFC championship, like there's so many teams that you could think of off the top of your head. They're like, yeah, they could go to the Super Bowl. They could go to the Super Bowl. Like it's insane.
We'll have to see if we can get Avery on the podcast with us this week to talk about AFC, see what his thoughts are on the Bengals.
Yeah, little 3-person back and forth. I like it.
There we go. Real quick, if you end up with the number 1 overall pick in fantasy, who are you taking?
I'm not answering that.
You have to answer it, Tim. The people need to know who to avoid.
No, I will not. I will not answer. I refuse.
He's already told me he's taking Justin Jefferson, so everyone avoid Justin Jefferson at all costs.
I never once told you anything off air.
That's what he said. That is what Tim said. Stay away from Justin Jefferson.
Zach is making this up.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining.
It would probably be Justin Jefferson, though.
Stay away from Justin Jefferson.
But I don't remember telling you that.
I just knew. I knew who you were leaning to. But Tim, thanks for joining. For the viewers and listeners out there, please go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, drop us a like. Feel free to drop comments too. Let us know what you liked about the show, what you didn't like about the show. Ask us any questions that you would like for us to talk about on the next episode. Share it with your friends. If you're listening to us on a podcast platform, please go ahead and subscribe on there as well. Leave us a review. I wanted to read this review that I got that I sent to you guys in our group message. This is hilarious to me. I hope this person still listens, but so this is a review from September of 2022, so last season. I don't actively like check reviews, and because we had taken so much time away from like recording, I didn't really go back, but I was just scrolling through the podcast the other day, and we have all 5-star ratings with the exception of this one review, and it's hilarious. And I take it as a sign of we're doing the right things, because when somebody trolls you, like it's a good thing. So this review is one of the worst wagering podcasts. It says, I lose so much money with their picks. You'd be better off with a drunk monkey making picks. I really believe their parlays might get me out of debt and help pay for my kids' college. Nope, get the monkey. Listen, I'm just going to put this out there for everyone. In the past, we have always done like insane parlays. That's kind of been just what we did for fun. We did 8, 9, 10 leg parlays, which I'm assuming if you're listening or watching this show, you have done some type of sports gambling in your life. 7, 8, 9, 10 leg parlays. I know it's cool to see them on Instagram where people hit them. They are as close to impossible as you can get to hitting. Like for every one of those that you see posted on Instagram, there's probably 2 million that lost by one leg. So I apologize if we misled you that you were going to get yourself out of debt with our big boy parlays in the past. We are changing it up this year where we're not doing that, but I appreciate whoever left that review and just left their name as a bunch of emojis. So I appreciate you all. But so YouTube, podcast platforms, Instagram, go ahead and like us or follow us on Instagram at Bourbon and Bets, and then also on Facebook at Bourbon and Bets. I guess that's going to be it. Tim, one last time, you got anything for the listeners, or are you ready to wrap it up?
No, I think I'm good to wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you again soon when we cover the AFC.